Commissioner Wong going to be joining us, or
He's supposed to be. I'll keep an eye out in the attendees and promote him if necessary.
okay, because we do have quorum. So
Yes, we do.
go ahead and start. Okay, so it's 7 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the Millbrae Special Planning Commission meeting on February 23rd, 2022. We're again doing this on Zoom, and I'll just go ahead and call the meeting to order. And may we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Nagro.
Present.
Commissioner Quigg. You're on mute. I see you though.
Present.
Thank you. Vice Chair Davis.
Here.
Chair Joe.
Present.
Thank you. And I see Commissioner Wong. Sorry to interrupt. I'll promote him to panelist right now. He should be coming in a minute. Okay, and Commissioner Wong.
Present.
Thank you.
Good evening, welcome. So let's go ahead to the Pledge of Allegiance. Can we have the flag?
Can everyone see that?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is, so first on our agenda is agenda review. So do we have any items, any of the commissioners or staff have any items that we need to review in terms of the agenda? Commissioner Quigg, are you nodding? Oh, okay, Commissioner Quigg, please. No, you're
Everything is
muted.
fine. No.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
Okay, so everything is fine with, and I don't see anything else from any other commissioners. So we'll go on to item number 2, which is approval of minutes. So we have 2 sets today. One is the revised special meeting minutes of December 13th, 2021, and the other is the regular meeting minutes of December 20th, 2021. So let's go with the first one. First, December 13th special meeting minutes. Do we have any comments or any motions for that?
I do know that this, Chair Joe,
Yes.
I do know that this obviously was raised up about making sure that the notes are complete about things that I had said during that meeting. I have reviewed them and they do appear to be very complete, and I appreciate Commissioner Wong pointing that out last meeting.
Great, thank you. Anyone else, or can we have a motion to approve them?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from December 13th.
Yeah, second.
I'll second it.
Second from Commissioner Quigg. Can we have the roll, please? I mean, the vote, please. From the staff, have the vote.
Sorry, then I was muted.
That's okay.
Commissioner Nagro.
Yes.
Commissioner Wong.
Yes.
Commissioner Quigg.
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis.
Yes.
And Chair Joe.
Yes,
Thank you. Minutes are approved.
thank you. And then moving on to the meeting minutes of December 20th. Do we have any questions or a motion on that? On those minutes? Seems like there's none. So can somebody motion to approve if you're good with that?
I wasn't here.
Oh, okay. So Commissioner Quigg wasn't here.
I will again make the motion to approve the minutes from December 20th.
Second.
Thank you. And vote, please.
Commissioner Nagro.
Yes.
Commissioner Wong.
Yes.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes.
Commissioner Quigg. You'll abstain.
I was, yeah, I abstained. I was absent.
And Chair Quigg.
Oh, Joe.
I'm sorry.
Joe, now
Chair
you're
Joe.
throwing me off. Yes. I would
Great.
like to make a note. I've asked in the
Sure.
past for this, if we can try to keep them down to action items. And I think if we can do that moving forward, because there was a lot of discussion back and forth. And I think what's important is to have the action items. And maybe if there's a concern, like a main concern or a dissension, I think that's good to have. But otherwise, it's a lot to read through. And I think it would be good to do that. Commissioner Davis, did you want to?
Yeah, if you look at city council minutes, you'll see how brief they can be. That would be the model that I'm looking for sure.
Agree. I feel the same way. So,
Noted. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item number 3, which is public communication. This is a time to reserve for persons wishing to comment on any item that comes under the purview of the Planning Commission, but is not on the agenda today. So even if I know that there are probably people with us, other members of the public, this is a time for non-agendized items to be discussed. So do we have anyone who wishes to speak? And if you do, I think if you can raise your hand, that's the best way for us to know.
There are no hands.
No hands? Okay, great. So we will move on to item number 4A for public hearing on 300 El Camino Real. This is a public hearing on the extension of a conditional use permit application for a restaurant in the commercial C zoning district. And then we'll just go ahead and with the staff report, please.
Good evening, planning commissioners. Let me just get this to be full screen. Can you confirm that you're seeing the full screen and not half? Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yes.
So once again, good evening. I'm Nestor Guevara, planning associate planner, here in the city of Millbrae. I'm joined today by Roscoe Mata, our planning manager, and Mike Conneran, the deputy city attorney. As Chair Jill mentioned, the project tonight is at 300 El Camino Real. The subject, it's a public hearing on an extension of a conditional use permit application for restaurant use in the commercial zone. This map here just shows the location of the project site. Again, it's on El Camino Real, and the red dot here shows the location of the project. Just a bit of background information. The zoning classification for the project site is for the commercial zone. There's an existing 3-level restaurant, and this site contains 7 on-site parking spaces. The proposal is to extend the conditional use permit to continue that restaurant use. To give a bit of a timeline of past planning commission meetings, the project was first brought forward to the planning commission all the way back in December 2011. The original CUP was approved then for a 5-year period. Excuse me. The project was then brought to the Planning Commission for a modification of the CUP, which was approved on July 21st, 2014. The expiration date for this modification was the same as the original expiration date, meaning 5 years after the initial approval. On November 7th, 2016, the Planning Commission approved a limited term extension to run. The original expiration date would have been December 19, 2016. The extension ran until March 31st, 2017. And this was to allow the applicant to address some operational concerns. And then on March 20th, 2017, the conditional use permit was approved by the Planning Commission with off-site lease agreements for parking until December 31st of 2019. The applicant then submitted the required application for a CUP extension. The leases at this moment would be running on a month-to-month basis. And due to the pandemic, indoor dining was initially severely limited by county orders. In terms of the parking analysis, a restaurant used on the commercial zone would require 1 parking space for each 2.5 seats in the restaurant. The lot itself, as mentioned earlier, has 7 off-street parkings that are on site. The originally approved CUP, as well as the modification in 2014, and then further extension in 2017, included leases for multiple off-site parking areas along El Camino Real. This current proposal includes 1 off-site parking area on a month-to-month basis. This is located at 460 El Camino Real, and that is the Universal Supply lot, which is just north of the project site. This lot contains 83 parking spaces, and the maximum allowed seating, which would include the on-site parking, which is the 7 parking spaces, and the off-site leasing at Universal Supply, which is the 83 parking spaces, would allow for 225 restaurant seats. This again with the ratio of 1 parking space for each 2.5 seats. Staff is recommending approval of the extension of the conditional use permit with a maximum of 18 restaurant seats, given the 7 on-site parking spaces. Again, with that ratio of 2.5 seats for each parking space. The seating capacity may increase if the applicant does provide the required off-site parking spaces with a minimum of 2-year leases at a ratio of that ratio again of 1 parking space for every 2.5 seats. We are also recommending a special event condition that the applicant must inform the city of any special events 90 days prior to the date of that event and provide a parking plan for that event. In order for the Planning Commission to approve a conditional use permit, the following findings must be made. Number 1, that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the use applied for will not, under the circumstances of the particular case, be detrimental to the health, safety, morals, comfort, and general welfare of the persons residing or working in the neighborhood of such a proposed use. And number 2, that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the use applied for will not, under the circumstances of the particular case, be detrimental to property and improvements in the neighborhood of such a proposed use. Staff believes that these findings are made as detailed in the staff report. And with that said, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission receive a presentation, review the project, consider the public testimony, and approve the extension of the conditional use permit subject to the findings in the resolution in attachment 1 and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit A of attachment 1 to allow a restaurant in the commercial zoning district. With that said, staff is available again through myself, Nestor Guevara, Roscoe Mata, our planning manager, and Mike Conneran, our deputy city attorney, for any questions, and the applicant is present as well.
Thank you very much. And I believe, Mr. Conneran, were you going to make a statement as well in terms of this project?
Well, yeah, just that, this is an existing conditional use permit, so the commission is considering that. The conditions have been in place for quite a long time. I would just also state, I know Commissioner Joe, you do have a lease interest in the vicinity, but you do not, the approval or lack of approval of this use permit would not affect that value, and so therefore it is not an actionable conflict that you would need to recuse yourself under. Just before you get started, we should have the commissioners indicate whether or not they've had outside ex parte, we call them, contacts regarding this matter. So if that disclosure could occur, that's all I'd recommend. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And just to clarify, so I am my office, I'm leasing an office that's directly across the street from the restaurant. I do not own the building, and I did run that by our deputy attorney, city deputy attorney. If anybody other of the commissioners have any ex parte communications you'd like to disclose at this time, is there anyone? No. Okay, it seems like Commissioner Wong, you have your hand raised.
Yes, just to note, I have had no communications with the owner.
Okay, thank you.
Representative of the owner.
Thank you very much. So let's go ahead and go into questions of staff from, the applicant. Do we have the applicant here too? Also,
I believe he is here, yes.
Okay, actually, let's go into questions for staff first. Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry, just didn't.
It's been a little bit. Any questions for staff? Anybody would like to start? Commissioner Quick.
I have a question. Currently then, it's all month to month. There are no leases. Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
There are leases that have exceeded their
Yes.
long-term term, and they've turned over to month, pretty common
yeah.
in a commercial lease setting.
So are we going to require that we have a 2-year lease then on these based on the conditions?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So basically, until you get those leases, even if we approve it, it's not going to happen. Is that correct?
They have 18 seats because of the 7 parking spaces.
Yeah, so the approval would be for the 18 seats, but then it has the condition that if the applicant does have a 2-year lease,
Then
then the seating can increase according to that ratio.
basically currently at this moment, we don't have anything, right?
In terms of the long-term lease, no.
So currently they're only able to operate on a limited basis. And
That's right.
yes, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are you done, Commissioner Quinn? Any other questions? Or okay, Commissioner Del Negro?
Can you clarify with that, the conditional use permit would be for the 2 years to match the lease, or it would be longer than the 2 years of that lease?
So it'd be a 2-year, it'd be a 2-year extension, right? So it'd be the minimum that we're asking for the off-site parking leases would be 2 years.
The duration of the conditional use permit matches the duration of the lease for the parking? Or does it go on for longer than the parking? Say 2 years down the road, the parking vanishes. Does a conditional use permit have a sunset or?
So it would match, that's correct.
Conditional use permit is for 2 years at this point. So the leases start later, it doesn't matter. So that's what I'm thinking. So if they don't get the 2-year lease until a month from now, it's still, that doesn't change the CUP date. Commissioner Negro, you're okay? I lost you on the screen. Okay, I see. Commissioner Wong.
Excuse me.
Yes, a couple of questions. So in our city of Millbrae, how many other restaurants have such a conditional use permit that requires parking and occupancy based on the parking that they provide? In correspondence with City Manager Tom Williams, he believes that, I spoke with him, he believes that there were none. No other restaurants had such a condition to require parking and limitations on occupancy based on providing parking. But and planning, can the planning department clarify that and verify that?
Sure. So there's no other lot. I'm not aware of another restaurant that has off-site leases to meet their parking required. But lots in the restaurants in the commercial zone, the ratio of 2.5 seats requiring a parking spot, parking space, that's consistent throughout the commercial zone.
Okay, however, there is parking throughout that western side of El Camino, but it's not dedicated for specifically like for that in any specific restaurants, right? They're all shared parking spaces and public parking, correct?
So for the I believe what you're referring to is the businesses on Broadway in the DIA. So the businesses in that zoning district are able to avail of the public parking lots. So no parking is required for those businesses in that zone. To our knowledge, this is the only site where the city had required off-site parking leases to satisfy the parking requirement.
And so a question for legal counsel, is that parity or is that justified to have a specific condition and single out one restaurant to require them to have such restrictions such as occupancy limitations based on parking that they can provide, and also notifying the city of any special events when no other restaurant has that requirement?
Well, I think it's important to point out that this restaurant does not have the parking that that a restaurant would normally need to have in the commercial zone. So rather than, this restaurant is basically given a special dispensation to be allowed to open or continue an operation, even though it could not provide on its own property, the parking that's required. Other restaurants in the commercial zone provide the parking. It's just on the property in which they're located. So this is a situation where the owner was allowed to open a business and is because he's unable to provide the parking on the location where he is, I've been given permission to feature that parking in an off-site location. You don't know if you recall, but when this business first opened, there was a terrible problem of parking in the Hemlock neighborhood, because that's the sort of logical place people look for parking if they can't park, since there is no parking. And there was a great outcry from the Hemlock neighbors, and now they have a parking permit in place, a district in place to try to control that parking. So the restaurant is seeking to, I think on the special events, is seeking to exceed their permitted capacity. Is that correct, Roscoe or Nestor? So in other words, they have a limit at 276 based on their ability to provide the parking at the offsite location. If they wish to have events that exceed 276, in order to make sure that there's not an impact of the attendees parking in the residential neighborhood, they're required to come up with an arrangement as to how they're going to provide that parking.
That's 225, actually.
I'm sorry,
It's-
225.
Yeah, 276 was for a previous. Yeah.
All right, okay, 225, thank you.
So if we say that, businesses, restaurants, not to single out specific ones, but for example, maybe ones next to Millbrae, like Shanghai Dumpling or 16 Mile House, they don't provide any of their own specific dedicated parking. They're able to count the street parking as available for patrons of their establishments. However, so can the Tai Wu count similar justification and have street parking count towards their credit for availability for their patrons?
It's the requirement of the zoning code, Commissioner. So the other restaurants that are located, as what staff explained, that are located in the downtown improvement area have a different parking requirement. The city has a number of its own lots, and there's more on-street parking. Every restaurant in the commercial zone, as like this one, is required to provide the parking at the ratio that's contained in the zoning ordinance.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions.
Sure.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions of staff? Okay, I actually have a few. So let's see. In the staff report, it was noted that there were some additional materials that were requested. Have you received any since the staff report? Have you received any of those documents?
We have not, no.
Okay, because in addition to the lease, there was also location and details of the wayfinding signage and maps for the offsite parking and a larger parking plan. So none of that has been received yet.
We did not receive those, no.
Okay, thank you. There was also in the staff report a mention of that last year in March, there was a possible application for mixed use. Would that have helped? I think, would there have been a solution if there was some change in usage, or I believe it still would have been an issue? Can you please clarify that?
So we did receive an application, and it included a smaller restaurant component, as well as a residential component. On top of that, the parking, the requirements for residential would be different. I think overall the required parking would have been less, but I'm not sure that the parking on site would have met their required parking.
Okay, thank you.
I'd have to go back and double check, but I do not believe so.
Okay, and then the special event, so that's in case if they're going to want an excess of the 225. I'm assuming that there's a maximum. Is that just by building code? Is that where the maximum is set, or how would that be determined in terms of what's the maximum number? Because when you receive a parking plan, are they going to tell you, that we're closing down a section, we're going to limit it? How does that work?
So the parking, so number of seats in the restaurant is determined based off the number of parking stalls that they are able to secure in a combination of on-site and off-site parking spaces. And so the maximum that they were allowed under the previous original conditional use permit was 276. And that included a lot that they no longer are able to access for private parking.
I'm more referring to the special events. Because in the wording in here says special events of limited duration, they may exceed the number of permitted restaurant seats. So that reads to me as if 225 is the max, and assume they have their 2-year lease, for special events, you can actually go even above that. That's the way that reads to me. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, as long as they're able to provide sufficient evidence that they're able to secure enough parking for that event, in addition to whatever they already have.
And then there should be a max though, right? So would that be built by building fire code? Is that
Right, would be the original approved
276?
capacity, yeah.
Is that okay? So anything above the 225 for special event could go up to 276,
That's right.
more or less. Okay, thank you. And just one more question. Could you go a little bit into the repercussions if there is a special event plan or it is not submitted, the 90-day, or what happens if there is a plan and it doesn't work out very well? If you can just, what are the repercussions of, how does that get dealt with?
Well, it would be a code enforcement issue. We would have a code enforcement officer go out to the site, verify, do an investigation, and there could be some penalties imposed, and then that could trigger, going back to the commission. But those are some options available.
Thank you.
Commissioner, we may also not issue the permit for the next event, right? We don't have to, in other words, if they're not complying with the conditions, or for instance, they say they're going to do valet parking and then they don't have that operation, then, I think if it's abused, then the city has the option of not permitting the future special events.
Thank you. That's helpful. I had one more, it's more of a comment, so I'll save that for later. Commissioner Del Negro, you had a more question?
Commissioner Wong sparked a question on his thought process that he shared. And that really is a question about offsite. Obviously we heard that this would be the only one in the commercial district that has offsite. What is the maximum or minimum distance that offsite can be from the restaurant? Is that defined? And, could they get a lot far away and, I guess, shuttle patrons into the restaurant from a distance? What qualifies for this, I guess, parking lease as far as distance from a restaurant?
It is not defined, and what we do is we look at the parking that they're able to secure from the original approval, and the farthest lot, I believe, from property line to property line was around 300 feet, and so that's kind of around the range that we're looking at in terms of how close to the site. So something that you're able to walk to.
Right. So the same parameters, the original conditional use permit would apply here. It has to be equal distance to the farthest lot in that.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Commissioner Wong.
Yes, also to clarify what we're doing tonight, we're making a decision to whether or not to approve of the conditional use permit extension, and that staff is recommending on limitations of occupancy, but for our decision-making process, clarifying that we have opportunity to go with that staff recommendation or any other compromise or any other condition that we impose, like for a number of people and number of occupancy, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Okay, seeing none, let's, if we have the applicants. I think they're already online. Thank you for your patience, and welcome to this evening. Good to see you again. And please go ahead, and if you'd like to add anything or have anything else you'd like to make any statements, please do so. Mr. Fong? Oh, I think you're muted still.
Hello, all. Good to see everybody again. Hope everybody's doing well. I know it's probably been a long couple of years. So is this time for us to make a statement or to
Yes.
answer any of the
Both. So
aforementioned questions?
you can make a statement. If there were any questions, any things that the commissioners mentioned, you can maybe address those if you'd like. And then we'll have a time for the commissioners to ask questions of you directly.
Okay, we'll just make a quick statement. I'd like to thank the commission for continuing to work with Taiwu to enable our business that serves the residents of Mill and other visitors to our last 2+
1 moment. Is it me that's freezing, or is that are other
including
people?
businesses.
Mr. Fong, you're freezing up. So
Are we freezing? Are we
yes.
freezing
So you
like
said
video wise
thank
or
you. Both. The
audio
audio
too?
is more important. Mhm.
Oh, both. Okay, we'll start again. Just like to thank the commission for continuing to work with Taiwu to enable our business that serves the residents of Millbrae. Smooth right now? Okay.
Yes, good. You're good.
Okay. As you guys all know, the last 2+ years been pretty trying times for the entire public, including our business and all small businesses alike. Small businesses have been hit harder than most. In relation to our business, the financial burden has been pretty substantial, mainly due to the multiple indoor dining restrictions. It's been really on and off throughout the duration of, due to the COVID-19 virus. We hope we're now closer to the end than the beginning of this crisis. These have been all really unprecedented times for everybody involved. And due to the unpredictability of the virus and the restrictions that come with the potential spread of, new variants, our current application under consideration today includes like the most noteworthy change, which was brought up already, coming in the form of off-site parking proposal. So the change comes in, just to reiterate, a reduction from 276 to 225 based off that 2.5 to 1 parking stall to seating capacity ratio. As Nestor mentioned, 83 stalls are going to still be provided at Universal. That's consistent with, I think, in the 2011 conditional use permit hearing that we proposed. Nothing's changing with Universal. The main one is the Burger King. The I guess used to be existing Burger King has now been leased out to some other party during these 2 years. We also include the 7 on-site parking to give us a grand total of 90, which is 2.5 to 225. Again, consistent with our past, Taiwu, we'd like to be proactive in our goal of being a good neighbor. I assume the commission is pretty familiar with our operations so far, now that we've been in business for going on 9 years now. So I won't go into a full review at the moment, but I'm open to questions. And based off a couple comments that was brought up before, I guess I also want to ask, based off what Commissioner Joe was asking in terms of the maximum capacity if we do for special events. Because right now, let's say we have the 2-year lease, which good news, since the last time we spoke, Nestor and Roscoe, we have like a full verbal. We're still working on the signing of the lease, but the 2 years should be in place very shortly. Hopefully by tomorrow, we'll see. But the 225, and then for special events, let's say for if we do valet parking or we find an offsite parking lot, I know we have a couple businesses nearby. We used to use Speedy that can offer us, about 10 to 12 spaces during their off hours after 5, 6 o'clock. And that's mainly when our special events would occur. And I think we're hoping just as much as probably you guys that special events comes back, because over the last 2 years, probably it's been very far and in between where we have those. We used to really rely mainly our business on big banquets. As you know, weddings have been canceled left and right over the last 2.5 years. Anyway, I won't get too much into it, but back to the 225. Is it based off the fire code, the maximum capacity, or are we going to the 276, what we agreed upon based at that 110 parking stalls? Roscoe or Nestor?
This is a question for staff. They're having.
Yeah, because from my understanding,
What was your
when the fire
understanding?
marshal visited us before, he did mention that our building, it can hold excess of 400 safely, but not based off obviously the parking stalls. But let's say if we do have a special event, I don't know, somebody who wants to hold a big wedding. I'm sure my parents want me to have a big wedding. If I'm having a wedding here, let's say, and we hire valets to bring us to an offsite parking lot, maybe somewhere along the size of adjacent to the Millbrae city, would we be able to, kind of push the fire code limits, what's safe for our building to hold, or are you guys holding us to 276? Or has that still TBD?
So perhaps we can give staff a little time to get that definite, and then maybe go ahead to questions for now. Do you have any other comments though, before we do that? You'll still have time after this too. That's fine.
Okay, and then back to, I think what Nestor mentioned in terms of what other documents have we provided since, the last conversation or the staff report you guys had. Wayfinding signage was, I believe, included in the first, because wayfinding signage meaning how we find the parking lot, correct? If I have that correct?
Yes.
I believe I provided that. It should be also in the staff report, if I remember correctly. It's kind of like a arrow pointing map, shows Hillcrest, shows our restaurant, those type of icons. Is that what you guys are looking for? Because that's what we provided in the past. We have, obviously edited.
Okay, maybe the staff, if you can answer that. And then we can
we requested additional information. Yeah, we do recognize that was submitted. We did ask for additional clarifying information, which, as you can see in the conditions of approval, that can be something that can be submitted as a condition.
Okay, thank you. So can we go ahead to questions from the commissioners of the applicant? No questions?
Oh, for us? Oh,
no, I'm asking the commissioners if they have questions of you.
Yes. I thought everybody's waiting.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
Nobody? Okay, Commissioner Quick.
Just a comment. I've been with this project since the beginning. At the very beginning, you did try the valet, and it didn't work out very well, if I remember. But I would tend to think for a special event, it might work better than when you were trying to do it before you got the additional parking spaces.
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Quigg. I think when we first tried to implement it, it was more for a day in and day out operations. I think for special events where people coming in already know that, valet will be offered, I think that will be used a lot more than if, my Joe Schmo coming from South San Francisco, not knowing how the operations are running, walking in and, hey, there's a parking spot on the street. Why am I going to pay? Versus if I'm going to a wedding and on the RSVP or the invitation that there will be valet available, I think that would be a lot, utilized a lot more than in the past. Because in the past, it was a double edge where it wasn't working out from a business perspective, how much it would cost the overhead, and then the utilization by the public, which is most important here. So I think to answer your question, I think when it comes to special events, especially with a lot of forewarning, I think it should solve the issues. Parking.
Great. Any other questions, Commissioner Quigg?
No.
Okay. Any other commissioners would like to? Any questions of the applicant? Okay, Commissioner Wong.
Yes, I would just like to hear the staff's response to the question that the owner had about the 225 versus the 276. Is that a 225 versus 276? Is that a limitation for fire code?
Do we have an answer yet, staff?
The 276 seat is based off of the original proposal that was in 2011, and the number of parking stalls that were required. So that came from the original proposal, and it's not. I don't believe that it is directly related to fire capacity. Yeah, so, but rather than the amount of seats that was proposed in the original project.
And I have some thoughts and comments on it. So maybe after, once we get to the discussion, we can kind of talk a little bit about that as well. But it seems like it's not clear. Commissioner Del Negro.
But one more clarification on hours of the off-street parking. If it does come about for obviously the extension of the 2 years, those park spots would be required to be available during open hours of the restaurant. I'd like some clarity on that. Is that correct?
Is that a question for us or for
I think it's more for staff here at this point.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, can you please repeat your question?
All right, are the hours for the conditional use permit to be reinstated for the 2-year extension, the 2-year lease, all those spots have to be available during opening hours, the entire opening hours of the restaurant?
Yes.
Okay.
But just to clarify, for lunch, it's only 69 spots that are available. And so the occupancy goes down to 190. So it's just for dinner that you go to 225. That's what's stated in there. Okay.
That's correct. Like
Yeah.
Consistent with the original
consistent.
CUP.
Right.
Universal during their opening hours, they
Yep.
have a couple spots.
So I guess seeing no others, I'll do a couple. First of all, just to the applicants as well as to all the business owners out there, it's been a hard 2 years. So I think we're all trying to do the best that we can and trying to work together. And I feel your pain. I did want to ask I was going to ask about the 2-year lease. So it's a good news to hear that you do have a verbal on that. So that's good. And then my other question I was going to ask is that staff is recommending a 90-day before event, any large events, the parking plan 90 days in advance. Is that something that is doable for you? Or have you thought about that? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I think for most majority, go ahead, Roscoe.
I just wanted to clarify that this is for exceeding the number of restaurant seats above 225 up to 276.
Right. So special events, to be able to exceed the 225, there is a recommendation of a 90-day in advance plan. Do most of your special events 90 days? Most of them you hear out 90 days in advance?
Like I said, I think most of them do fall within that, excess of 90 days planning. But again, sometimes there might be, I guess, tour buses that have type of agreements with travel agencies that fall within that 90-day time frame. And I did bring this up pre-meeting with the staff in terms of how we would approach that. And I think that 90 days is, from what I was explained, is put in place so everybody has enough time to kind of follow up and make sure that the rules are being followed, which we understand. But at the same time, as a business, it's hard to predict with 100% certainty that everything excess of 276 will fall after 90 days, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, since COVID, I don't believe we've had one event go over 276. I know code enforcement has sent us some emails saying anonymously they've gotten some tips that potentially we have gone over. But from my understanding and also from management's point of view, not just point of view, but from our operations from 2004 and on, we've had complaints. We've had fire, staff come in, but not once have we violated any codes. We've never been penalized for any, code violations. So I think we've been in good standing outside of the anonymous complaints here and there. But from just like a black and white perspective, I don't believe we've ever exceeded our agreed upon 276 seating capacity.
Okay, all right.
Through the chair.
Yes, staff.
So in the original conditional use permit in 2011, the restaurant proposed 276 seat restaurant. So the conditional use permit was based off of that fact. Now, you know, they provided leases for parking stalls to allow them for 276 seats. Without the parking lot at the former Burger King, that seat capacity was reduced. So that's what the 225 seats is for. So we don't have a lease even on month to month for to go up to 276. So that's the reason why that 225 is here. Now, should the applicant desire to have more than 225 or even more than 276, that's a completely different question. We don't have enough documentation for to exceed the original approval for 276 restaurant. If that were the case, say that a month or two from now that the applicant says we have enough parking stalls for 300, for example, we would have to go back to the Planning Commission to amend the conditional use permit to allow more seating. So we're just going off of, this is a CUP extension, and the original approval was for 276. So therefore, there would not be permitted 276, more than 276 seats.
Okay, thank you. Did we have any other questions before we go to public comment?
Through the chair, just a clarification. Roscoe, so it's the special event permit would enable them to go from the 225 to the 276? Is that what's intended?
Correct.
Thanks.
I don't think that that's clear though in the resolution. So I think that's something that we should maybe discuss or put it in there. Because there's nothing that states 276. Okay, so if there are no further questions from commissioners, let's go ahead to public comment. Just to let those of you know who haven't joined us before, I know we have a good group. So this is a time, can we mute the applicants, please? Thank you. So for everyone who's joining us who'd like to speak on this project, we are limiting it to public comment for 3 minutes each. We ask that you keep everything brief and brief, and hopefully we'll be able to hear everybody out and hear your concerns and also some thoughts. So let's go ahead. If we have any, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak? And then just for procedurally, just so you know, any of the issues that do come up from the public, we will at the end of that session have a time for the applicants to respond. And then that is mostly the end of public comment unless the applicants bring up something new that needs to be talked about further. So that's the procedure that we'll go through, and then we'll formally close the public comment section. So with that said, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak? And if you do, please raise your hand so that the staff can let you in.
Sure, Joe, we have one hand. Doug Radke, I will allow you to speak. If you would come off mute, please.
Hello, Planning Commission. This is Doug Radke. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Just had a couple comments. One is, well, really, this situation I think has been ongoing, since 2011, right? We had, COVID, and the applicant got 2 years more after the expiration of the conditional use permit. I think what needs to happen after 10 years is a definitive plan to kind of deal with the situation. As I recall, in 2011, the conditional use permit had executed lease agreements in hand. And so I think, the commission should strongly consider, the same criteria, to be in place. So if there's, parking commitments that are not fully committed, that should be weighed. The other comment I had was the conditional use permits for another 2 years. I would ask, the commission to think maybe of a shorter period, just so it comes back to commission, at an earlier time, and to, really work with the applicant to come up with the long-term solution. Otherwise it's just going to be hot potato with this lease agreement thing every couple of years. And, I think there's ways to collaborate on this. Obviously the restaurants here, because you're part of the community. Heck, my cousin had her wedding reception at Tai Wu. So, it's not like I had anything against, the restaurant, but, it's been a source of contention. And I just think it's a good practice that these issues get solved. One other comment I had was it would be nice if, folks in the commission, when you come, you're prepared. I found the questions about why this commercial zone is a 2.5 parking spot requirement and downtown doesn't, just kind of inconsistent. I mean, that is specifically, Commissioner Wong, right? You've been on planning commission for years. Pick up a copy of the general plan, read through the zoning ordinance. It's all there. The public needs to know that you guys understand, the rules. The staff's giving the information. So you got to know the zoning. You got to know the rules. There's bigger projects coming down the pipeline, than a conditional use permit for parking. So please, be prepared ahead of time. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Jean Wong, I think, is next.
If you'll come off mute, please.
I think you unmuted me again.
Oh, you're good. Thank you.
Am I
Jean,
unmuted?
Yep. Thank
We
you.
can hear you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Good evening,
go ahead.
Chairperson Joe and Planning Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As a longtime resident of Millbrae, I really believe it's time for Tai Wu and City of Millbrae to permanently resolve the parking problem that's plagued Millbrae for almost a decade. The lack of adequate parking, on-site parking, has negatively impacted the residents of Bayside Manor neighborhood and the businesses on both sides of El Camino where Tai Wu is located. My hairdresser is located down the block across the street, and I know her business had, well, certainly prior to the pandemic, has suffered significantly because of lack of parking for her customers. I like the Planning Commission to consider these concerns before it approves the request for the CUP extension. One, I think that there should be a deadline established for when the 2-year lease goes into effect. I know that the owner of the restaurant has indicated that they are in discussions with, I guess it must be with Universal Electric. And I'm pleased to hear that. But I think that the city should impose some sort of deadline by which this needs to be accomplished. My second concern is it Millbrae's intent to issue CUP extensions on an ongoing basis to Tai Wu, and that full compliance with parking ordinance has been sort of permanently waived for this organization? I think this would set a poor precedent for the community and also send the wrong message to the business community. And lastly, the proposed dynamic management of parking spaces to patron seating really cannot be monitored, audited for compliance by Millbrae effectively or efficiently. And I think I would like the commission to consider requiring some sort of static seating number as part of the CUP extension. So I think it'd be in Millbrae's best interest to consider these points that I brought up before it approves the CUP extension for Taiwu. To the previous speaker's point, I myself have dined there, and I think it's an excellent restaurant, and I really would encourage both the restaurant and Millbrae to come up with a permanent solution to this ongoing problem of adequate parking. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. We have Nathan Chen. If you can go ahead and come off mute.
Oh, yes.
We can hear
Hi.
you. Hi, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I guess half of what I wanted to talk about were questions that I hope either the applicant or staff can answer. So in terms of, how unique Taiwu situation is, I feel like the more appropriate comparison is with a number of restaurants on the north side of El Camino, some of which are pretty big, like Asian Pearl, for example, or Chef Wong's or Zen Peninsula. How much off-street parking do they have? And is that requirement consistent with what Taiwu is being asked to supply? I think this particular situation, I agree with the previous speakers that there is this sort of constant temporary extensions don't seem very sustainable to me. But I think, in aggregate across the entire city, this problem of parking is definitely deserves some attention. And the way I see it and the way lots of parking scholars see it is, there's a shortage of parking nearby, but not necessarily a shortage in aggregate. I think, Millbrae Square has a ton of parking that is often not used completely. I was actually going to suggest a valet to shuttle people for people to, the restaurant to be able to bring cars to some of these further locations. So I'm kind of surprised that the applicant said that didn't work. I recently dined in Southern California at a strip mall, which this parking lot was absolutely tiny, and the restaurant, it would not have been enough for that restaurant, let alone a number of other restaurants that were in, one of these strip malls that has multiple restaurants. But they had a valet. It was pretty cheap. It was less than $10. I was more than happy to hand over the money in order to not have to worry about parking. So I think there are creative and sustainable solutions to this problem. I'd be really interested to see them looked into and put into effect. But yeah, I think, like I said, just to return to the previous question, because I am genuinely interested, what sort of parking standard are North El Camino restaurants held to? And yeah, I think this is quite an interesting problem to think through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak? I'm not seeing any hands, but I want to make sure that we get to everybody. If you can't raise your hand for some reason, I don't know how I don't think we can just unmute everyone. Okay, so I'm not seeing anyone at this time. Why don't we have a time for, if the applicant would like to, if there's any response, you don't have to, but if there's any response that you would like to make, we'll give you that time period if you'd like to do so. Would you like to, or you? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Bell.
Based off, we really appreciate all the input and the questions put forth. Back to the last caller, I guess, Millbrae Square, valet parking and the feasibility of it. Like I said, we've tried it before, we've implemented it, and then we've had to come back because it wasn't working. People were avoiding it, whether it be based off cost, I doubt it. But again, what works in Southern California might not work in Millbrae. In terms of the long-term, having a long-term solution to our parking plan, We would love that as much as anybody else. Believe me, we don't like coming back to the Planning Commission every 2 years to make the same argument. If there was more, I guess, availability in terms of these offsite lots, we would be open to suggestions. We've reached out multiple times prior to some of the empty lots like the lumberyard, such and such, but them being private businesses, they still ultimately make the decision unilaterally. Other than that, I mean, we would love to have a long-term solution. We just, we don't see any options. Trust me, I mean, we've been in business since 2014. We've been coming to planning hearings since 2011. So what is it, 6, 7, 8, going on 8 years of business. So we're not like a decade in, like one of the speakers mentioned, but believe me, you know, my dad's the owner. I'm just speaking on his behalf, but even I'm tired of everything. So
Yeah.
if you guys
think
have a
the-
long-term solution, I'd love to hear it too.
Sure. And I think the reference to the decade is more because 2011 was the initial approval. So, okay, so do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak? Nobody still. So if we can go ahead and I'll need to have a motion and a vote, a second and a vote to be able to close the public comment portion at this time.
I move we close the public.
Oh, real quick, also back to one of the speakers in terms of like having a deadline for our extension of the 2-year lease. Currently, we still have leases. They're just month to month. They're still ongoing. They're still completely usable. Just to clear that up, it's not like we only have the 7 parking stalls on site that are available to the public. No, everything in Universal that we have, we're working on in terms of getting the lease. We have that verbal. We're trying to get it to you as soon as possible. Their agents are working, crunching some numbers. So it works for both of us. But those parking stalls, those 83 for nighttime right now, they're completely available even as I speak right now. As you guys can see, 3rd floor completely empty on a Wednesday. So we're not even, we probably don't need the full 90, but they're available if need be. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. And okay, I think Chair Quigg was going to motion to close public comment.
Yes, I did.
Second, please. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Wong. Can we have a vote to close public comment?
Lorenzo Nagra,
Yes.
Commissioner Wong,
Yes.
Commissioner Quigg,
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
Chair Joe.
Yes,
Thank you. Public comment is closed.
thank you. So now we'll go ahead and move on to commission discussion or any either discussion and or motions. Who would like to begin?
I'll
Chair
make a-
Quigg, thank you.
Yes, just kind of to get it, I'm sure that we would all love to have resolution on this forever. I just don't see how it could happen right now. So that being said, I think we're going to just have to plug along with what we're doing right now, with the hopes that something else will come forward and will clear it all up. I think we should just move forward on it. And those are really all my comments. It is unfortunate that this parking has been such an ordeal for as many years as it has, but it is.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Any other thoughts or comments? Commissioner Wong.
I think this Taiwu case is a good example of basically what we need to plan for and what we need to think about for the future, because there's a grand boulevard plan with high density developments planned for Millbrae. There's narrowing of the street. There's just drastic changes coming. And what I've heard over and over again from both city council and from city staff and in the planning commission here is that we're developing this kind of urban village. It's more dense, it's more urbanized. There's going to be more of these issues, but in essence, you know, we are trying to move away from people away from cars and congestion and parking and move into a more active, walkable community. TOD2 is going to open up in summer. There's going to be a lot more people walking through the city from that area. And, this urbanization of our city is what's to come. And having Taiwu as this case is just an example of kind of what our city is going to become more, and the issues, like everyone's pointing out, the parking, we're going to need to address that. And I think that we have done that. People pointed out that there's permit parking on Hemlock. There's crosswalks across El Camino to make it a little bit safer. But basically, I'm agreeable to extending this occupancy CUP conditional use permit that, I think there's market forces that will just dictate use of these establishments. People know that if parking's difficult and that, or if parking is easily and available, that it makes it easier for people to patron the restaurant, especially if you're in a time crunch during lunchtime. You only have half an hour. You have to park far away and walk. So people will understand that. And I think that these market forces, will also dictate use of these restaurants and establishments, so that there's less need for us to do that. But there's still some planning and the concerns that we can address.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Commissioner Davis or Commissioner Wong, Vice Chair Davis? Please go ahead.
I too am amenable to extending the CUP. I'm glad to hear there's a 2-year lease imminent. It's the best we can do right now. I mean, if that lease doesn't come through, their limit is 18 seats until they get the lease. There are hard numbers in here, and that's the way it is. And back to the comment about the resolution is unclear. And the special events thing, I'm just guessing that if we simply added in the line where it says the permittee may exceed the number of permitted restaurant seats, put that in parentheses, 276 or whatever, or 225, just stick that number in there, then that makes that paragraph more clear. I don't know, just a suggestion.
Thank you. Mr. Conrad, I think, wanted to speak, or City Attorney.
Yeah,
Deputy
just
Attorney.
thank you. Along that same line, I was looking at that condition 17. There clearly is an outside limit of the fire code, which I think I seem to remember from 2014 was in the 400 range, as the applicant mentioned. Right now, there isn't. I think it would be. I agree with Commissioner Davis that we could just clarify it in condition 16, where it says, permittee shall not exceed 225 at any time. That seems a little strong compared to, which is fine. I don't think we need to change that. I think if we could put the number of permitted restaurant seats, maybe put 225 in parentheses there. But I would just point out there is no cap, so I don't see 276 in here as the limit. The fire code, obviously, we're never going to exceed, because that's an important safety, and I'm sure the applicant has no intention of doing that. So I'm fine with it with that 225 addition, but I just wanted to raise that in case anyone has any other questions.
Oh, you mean the 276 addition? Is that what?
Well, no, the 225. I think. Well, I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't understand Commissioner Davis. I thought we were trying to just say they can exceed the 225 number, but right now it doesn't have a number. If the commission's wishes to, you could put in a number. In other words, a cap on what the special event seating could be.
Through the chair.
That's up to you.
Yeah.
Maybe staff has a position.
Sure.
Yeah, I could share a slide with the text, so
That
the
would be good.
commission
Okay.
Thank you.
be all on the same page. It incorporates the suggestion from Commissioner Davis.
It's page 4 of the staff report for those of you who want to look at your reports.
Great.
It says you're in sharing mode, but it's not showing.
It appears my computer has frozen.
Taking it.
Okay.
Do you want
So it's
the,
page 4 of the staff report, if for all of you.
right?
Hey, Chrissy, can you tell them that my computer's frozen?
We can hear
I
you.
can still hear you, Roscoe.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Um,
Why don't you stop sharing and try it again or something?
No, thank you, Ken.
yeah. What I'll do is perhaps
Maybe I can.
I'll read the condition.
Maybe not the whole condition, but just the last paragraph regarding the special events. I think that's where.
Right. So condition 17 on page 3 of 3. For special events of limited duration, the permittee may exceed the number of permitted restaurant seats up to a maximum of 276 seats, provided they submit proposals for additional interval parking. Does that seem to meet?
Commissioner, Vice Chair Davis has.
That's how I would understand it when you described that, given its original conditional use permit, 276 was the magic number. So because we would have to totally change that to exceed it, we should stop at that. So it's anywhere from 226 up, like you said, up to 276 is probably the right way to do it, as I understood the description.
Are you, does the commission see the?
Yes, we see it now, and that is, I think, exactly what Vice Chair Davis is suggesting.
Okay.
I don't want to put words into your mouth, but that's what I'm hearing you say.
No, yeah, that's perfect.
Great. Okay.
All right, I'm fine with it.
Okay, Commissioner Del Negro.
So yes, like the other commissioners here, obviously, and like the actual applicant themselves, the disproportionate amount of time we spend on reviewing this is, of course, a very big negative for both resources and, of course, everyone's time. That is a big problem. I'm also a little worried about the onerous nature of enforcement and the city's requirements to enter the premises and monitor at a higher level than you would for most restaurants. There is one point in section 16 that isn't clear enough, and I don't think there's enough clarity around how and when changes occur. And that is if somebody could pull up section 16 on the permit, if at any point for the duration of the CUP. We show that. Do you have that on?
You're referring to the special conditions?
Correct.
Of the resolution.
Resolutions, section 16, second paragraph. If any point during the duration of the CUP, the available parking is reduced, the restaurant seating shall be proportionally reduced at a rate of 1 parking space for every 2.5 seats. I don't see any nature as to the reporting of a change by the restaurant to the city. There's no methodology here stating how they have to report it, when they have to report it, how much time they have to report changes, and any consequences if they fail to do so. That would be one liability, I think, within the special use permit.
Is that something staff, maybe, I was thinking something similar. So if there was a change, because there is hopefully there will have to be a 2-year lease, but if something came up with that 2-year lease and something changed, maybe we could put in something like within a certain amount of time after, if there's any change that the city should be notified, something to that effect. Can we do that? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, there needs to be some definition of the time the applicant has to report that's been a loss of lease or change in their lease status.
Right.
And of course, some consequence iterated here if they don't do so.
So staff, is that something that we can do? I see you, Commissioner Wong, but I want to just get staff to.
Yes, we could do that. I'm working on that change to share with the commission in just a moment.
Okay, perfect. Should I, maybe we'll go to Commissioner Wong while Mr. Mata is working on that. Commissioner Wong, go ahead. You're muted, so.
I'd really think about reconsidering all these special requirements for reporting and so forth. I mean, it just seems like it's singling out one business when we have, many restaurants in Millbrae. We don't have any other requirements on any other restaurants for, enforcing parking spaces, number of seating per parking space. Again, there's other factors such as they mentioned, they can bus people in, people can walk all the way from other parking areas like next to City Hall. There's just a lot of other factors, and it seems like it's over-regulation. I don't know if that's what we want to become in our city, but it seems overly restrictive, and that why do we want to limit businesses from doing business? Again, like I mentioned, that there's market forces that can dictate. People know that if there's difficult access, they may try to avoid, and so there's natural factors that can help address the issue rather than us having to over-regulate and have people reporting in number of people in the restaurant each day. Seems like
yeah,
excessive.
So Commissioner Wong, you've mentioned a few times about singling out, and I really have an issue with that because the staff has clarified multiple times that this is not a singling out. The downtown restaurants are all under a different zone compared to the commercial C restaurants. The restaurants in commercial zoning do have to comply. And in 2011, when this was initially approved, the valet parking was a concession that was made to allow them to be able to do their business despite not complying with the parking requirements. Since then, it didn't work out. So 2014, when I had first joined the Planning Commission, it becomes an issue. So I know you mentioned market forces. The problem is that if there is not sufficient parking, it is a burden on the neighbors in the immediate neighborhood. And so what we're trying to do is come to a good compromise that will help the restaurant to continue to function well. We're trying to work with them and we want them to do well. At the same time, try to find a solution that would work out where the staff are not having to, find out something, the lease somehow changed. That's what's being proposed right now. So if the lease changes and all of a sudden there's not enough parking and people are starting to, park in neighborhoods and whatnot, that's what we're trying to avoid, being caught late, having to deal with it later. So this is not a singling out. This is actually trying to accommodate a restaurant in a situation that unfortunately doesn't have enough parking for what it needs to have. They did try valet parking, that didn't work. And that's why all of this came up to begin with. And so I just wanted to really clarify that because this is something that I know Commissioner Quigg is probably even, was here at the original and I'm the next one. And I've seen it come forward and I totally agree with everybody. And I'm sure the applicants as well, would love to have a long-term solution. But it's just at this point, here we are and we're trying to make it feasible. At the same time, make sure that we do have, proper, the whole seating requirement is because we want to make sure there's enough parking to meet the seating demands. And unfortunately, we have had situations where, things have changed and leases may change. And so that's just a practical reality of it. I think that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to single anybody out. I really take issue with that terminology because I don't think that's what we're trying to do. I know for myself, I'm not trying to do that. I don't think that the staff are trying to do that. I think even the public, members of the public have said good things about the restaurant. So I don't think anybody's trying to, have anything against Taiwu. I think we're trying to come to a good resolution and making sure that we keep the, whatever resolutions we have, that we do have a proper enforcement or compliance in place as we go along. I'm hopeful that, I think the restaurant has tried to really comply with everything. So I don't think they're going to try to not comply. But I think I think it's good to also have it in writing in terms of, if there's a lease change, let us know within 30 days so that we can, instead of having the staff be caught off guard. So I said a little more than I wanted to, but I really take issue with the singling out. I don't think that, I know for myself, and I'm pretty sure for staff, and that we're not trying to do that. We're trying to come to a good resolution and in a way that will be good for the city and the community and good for the restaurant as well. So with that
I
said,
respectfully disagree. No.
That's fine if you disagree, but I just wanted to get that out there. Mr. Mata, do you have the, if you want to go ahead and share that with us or read it out to us? Thank you.
Sure. Are you seeing the
Yes, we see your screen now.
Okay, so this is condition 16 on page 3 of 3, the second paragraph. if any point during the duration of the CUP, the available parking is reduced, the applicant shall notify staff immediately of the reduction parking, number of parking spaces remaining, and restaurant seating shall be proportionally reduced at a rate of 1 parking space for every 2.5 seats.
Do we want to maybe give a little, is immediate good, or should we give it like time frame, like within 7 days,
Yeah, 14 days.
7 days or something? I think it would be good to be a little more specific, because immediate is immediate. So within 14 days, does that sound, Commissioner Lenigro? I think you're the one who
7 to 14.
Propose that.
If you prefer 7, I'm fine with 7.
you're
Yeah.
fine with 7? Okay. All right, Vice Chair Davis.
Yeah, a smaller number is better, and perhaps throw in business days. I don't know, but I would say 3. I wouldn't. 7. I mean, if it's done, it's done. Just come tell us now. Don't drag it out. So, but a smaller number, 7 is better than 14.
Okay, we're hitting 7 or 3 business days, maybe.
I'm okay with anyone. It's just as long as we
It's
define.
not going to make that much difference. We're working semantics here.
Right. Well, we're writing it in, so
Yeah.
if we,
We're trying to make it clear.
yes,
So
we're trying to make it clear.
You know what? 3 business days or 7 days, probably it's going to be about the same. Maybe 3 business days.
Staff, do you have a preference? Does it matter to you?
I think the goal is to notify, as previous commissioner said, as soon as possible. 3 business days, I think, is a reasonable amount of time. It doesn't have to be the next minute or next day. 3 is reasonable.
Okay,
They're going
thank
to
you.
know when this happens. So
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we have any other comments that any other commissioners would like to make? I have a few myself still, so a couple more. If you can stop sharing. Yes, I can see. Commissioner Davis, Vice Chair Davis, did you have a agenda? Anybody else? Okay, so I will, before I ask for any kind of a motion, I just wanted to clarify again, the 2-year lease until the staff does receive that in writing, the seat number going up to the 225 does not take effect. So I just want to make that clear with the sake of the public. So until that happens, it is actually limited at the 18. And then after the lease comes about, it will be 190 for lunchtime. And when the electrical supply company is in operation, and then for dinner, 225 is a max. And then for special events, that can go up to 276. Another comment, we had talked about valet parking. One of the things that I thought might be good to include, because for the special events, it talks about the parking plan may be provided by valet parking and directing diners to offsite parking. I thought it might be nice to add in an option of shuttle. That might be another, if there's a big group and it's a special event, they can all meet at a certain parking space and do shuttle. So just putting that in there, I don't care if it's in the resolution or not. I just thought that might be good. And I do agree that valet parking is probably more, is going to be utilized more for a special event versus the day in and day out. And again, the long-term parking, I think a long-term plan, I think all of us would love to have that. Otherwise, we might be seeing, or we will be seeing it back in 2 years. I think one of the things that has come about, I know when we discussed this at the last extension, is that the footprint of Millbrae is changing. So El Camino is changing, and there's big development, big development, the Camino is coming in already. So, and we are working on our general plan and we are working on different plans. So hopefully the parking is always an issue that comes up for all of us. And so hopefully that will be something that will be resolved better in the future and that we'll be able to make some more accommodations for. So I just wanted to put that out there that we would love to have that. And I think there are some creative solutions out there. Technology is also changing. So there may be some good ways of using tech to be able to handle the parking situation. So with that said, I'd like to open up if anybody has a motion or would like to make a motion, or if you have any other comments. No, Commissioner Quigg, oh, you're muted. You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I make a motion that we extend the conditional use permit on this project, subject to the changes that we have made on the conditions just this evening.
Thank you. And the changes were clear on, right? It was just the two staff, if you can just make sure.
That's
that you're
correct.
clear.
So as presented in the conditions of approval and as amended at the Planning Commission meeting tonight, according to this this change on condition 16 and 17 as it's written.
Is that okay with you, Commissioner Quigg? That's
Yes.
okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Davis. Can we have the vote, please?
Commissioner Del Negro,
Yes.
Commissioner Wong,
Yes.
Commissioner Quigg,
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
Chair Joe.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. And there is a 10-day appeal period, I believe, on this as well as all of our other projects. So we wish you well. We hope that again, to your business as well as all of the businesses of Millbrae, really wish all of you, everyone the best, and that this year will be a year that we can really come out of this. It's supposed to be a record year for weddings, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hope so. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item. Let me grab my notes. So this is going to be on 40 Manzanita Court. This is another public hearing. And this is on the public hearing is on a design review permit application to permit a significant demolition of an existing single-family residence and the construction of a 2-story single-family residence in the single-family R1 zoning district. So may we have the staff update, please?
Thank you, Chair Joe. Once again, good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm Nestor Guevara, Associate Planner here at the City of Millbrae, joined by Roscoe Mata, our Planning Manager, and Mike Conneran, our City Deputy Attorney. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to mention a couple things. The Planning Commission received additional correspondence from a letter of neighbor consultation form in the form of support that was sent to the Planning Commission. A total of 6 email string correspondences between the neighbor at 25 Manzanita and the applicant were also sent to the Planning Commission at the request of the applicant. Those were sent on Friday, February 18th. And later on in the presentation, we'll clarify some of the conditions of approval to just clarify some of the 2nd-story setbacks and some of the shrub tree removal as well. So jumping into the presentation itself, the project address, like Chair Joe mentioned, is at 40 Manzanita Court. And the subject, it's a public hearing on the design review permit application to allow significant demolition of an existing single-family residence, the construction of a 2-story single-family residence in the R1 zone. This map here again shows the location of the project site. It's in the Mills Estate neighborhood. A bit of project overview and background information. The lot is in the R1 zone, the single-family residential zone. The lot measures at just over 19,000 square feet, but 14,000, just over 14,000 of it is developable land. And this is due to the existence or the presence of significant slope on the rear of the lot, as well as a public utilities. The proposal again is for a significant demolition and the construction of a 2-story residence. And I do want to mention that some of this will be familiar because we did hold a study session on the 1st of November of last year for this. So I'll just go through some of the slides that you have as part of the project plans as attachment 2. This here is the existing site plan. And then this is the proposed site plan. All of the development standards are met, including floor area, lot coverage, as well as setbacks both for the first story and the second story as well. This is the existing floor plan, which includes 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, then a living room, kitchen, an entry, and an attached 2-car garage. This is the proposed first floor plan. It includes two bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, a family room, dining area, living room, an entry, a mud room, and then the 2-car garage is kept and then expanded as well. And this is the proposed second floor plan, which includes the main bedroom, 2 additional bedrooms as well, a walk-in closet, a loft area, and a laundry room. Now I'll go through the elevation drawings. This is the existing front elevation, which features exterior board and batten with asphalt shingle roofing, as well as a wood garage door and some stone, a stone feature as well. This is the existing rear elevation, then the existing west elevation, and the existing east elevation. And then moving on to the proposed elevations, here's the proposed front elevation. The proposed materials, it features stucco on both the first and second story, composite roof shingle, and then wood for both the main front door and then the garage doors as well. And there is a stone feature present as well by the garage and by the entrance. And I should mention that it does meet the maximum height of 30 feet. It's, I believe it's just about 28 feet and 7 inches at its highest point. This here's the proposed rear elevation. This is the proposed west side elevation and the proposed east side elevation. And this rendering here just kind of gives a little bit of life to the architectural drawings that we've just seen. And it gives a better sense for the materials as well. So in terms of neighbor response, neighbor consultation forms are a part of any design review permit. A total of 4 neighbor consultation forms were sent to the adjacent neighbors from the project site. Of these, 1 was returned in the form of support, which was at 50 Manzanita, and then 2 neighbors returned their forms in opposition of the project at 25 Manzanita, which is across the street from the project site, and 30 Manzanita, which is a side neighbor on the east side of the project site. And 1 neighbor did not return the form. The neighbors at 25 Manzanita, which is again across the street, and 30 Manzanita, which is the east side neighbor, both expressed concerns to staff regarding the new home. The neighbors at 25 Manzanita mentioned loss of view from the proposed second story as a concern, while the neighbors at 30 Manzanita mentioned privacy. First, I'll go into a little bit more detail into the 25 Manzanita neighbor concerns. Like I mentioned, the 25 Manzanita neighbors expressed concerns regarding a loss of view on their neighbor consultation forms. The applicant did reach out to the concerned neighbor multiple times, and staff held multiple meetings with the applicant regarding addressing those view concerns. As mentioned earlier, the project was presented to the Planning Commission in the form of a study session on November 1st of 2021. In preparation for that study session, the applicant did prepare an analysis of different alternate options to address the view concerns, and these included a single-story addition, lowering plate heights, increasing second-story setback, and tree removal as well. As a result of that study session on November 1st, where staff presented the project, the applicant also made a presentation, and public comment was received as well. As a result of the study session, the Planning Commission directed both the staff and applicant to 1, directed the planning staff to perform a site visit and obtain photographs of the affected view. Number 2, directed staff to have a city-hired arborist assess the health of the tree and prepare a staff report for the tree that was proposed to be removed at the rear of 40 Manzanita. And number 3, directed the applicant and the concerned neighbor to reach a compromise. So in terms of the site visit, staff was able to perform a site visit December of 2021. Unfortunately, the conditions didn't really help too much because it was very overcast. We weren't actually able to capture a photograph, to obtain a photograph that really showed a view. And the homeowner at 25 Manzanita did provide photographs at staff's request that shows their view from the rumpus room on that second story. And the next few slides, I'll just show the photographs that were provided by the neighbor at 25 Manzanita. So again, this is taken from their second story rumpus room window. This is more of a panoramic from the same window again. And then a bit of a northern view from the rumpus room window. As mentioned, or as requested, the city hired an arborist to assess the health of the tree, of the Monterey pine tree, at the rear of 40 Manzanita. That was the arborist, Walter Levison. The arborist performed the site visit, and he was accompanied by staff on January 25th of this year. The arborist did find that the tree is deceased and stated that the tree would likely die, given it a lifespan of 0 to 5 years. The arborist report recommended removal of the tree and also included recommendations for replacement trees. The applicant did provide an updated landscape plan that shows the Monterey pine tree is to be removed and 3 15-gallon theater cedar trees in the rear of the lot as replacement trees. In terms of the upper story setback, at the November study session, the Planning Commission directed the applicant to reach a compromise with the concerned neighbor. Staff believes that increasing that second story setback by 2 additional feet, which would be 6 feet from the exterior wall proposed below, would be an adequate compromise that would allow the applicant to reach their goal of increasing their home size while also minimizing the view impacts on their neighbors. The applicant would also remove the existing pine tree and some bush hedges on that eastern side of their property, abutting 30 Manzanita. And staff just prepared this graphic here that shows how a proposed additional second story setback would affect the second story floor plan. So the portion in red shows that the additional 2 feet there. And then, as mentioned, the neighbors at 30 Manzanita did provide their neighbor consultation form expressing concerns regarding privacy and setback. Excuse me. The neighbor consultation form specified concerns with the setbacks on the east side of 40 Manzanita, which would be the side that abuts 30 Manzanita, as well as the height of the residence. Staff notes that the proposed first story setback for 40 Manzanita is actually 10 feet, where the requirement is 5 feet. So they do meet it and exceed the side yard setback there for the first story, and the second story setback is met as well. The proposed building height is below the maximum allowed building height of 30 feet at 28 feet and 7 inches. The applicant is also proposing a 2-foot lattice on top of the existing 6-foot fence abutting 30 Manzanita. The maximum allowed additional height without a fence exception would be, or is, 18 inches. A window study was also prepared by the applicant, which is included in sheet PLN1 of the full sets of plans. And staff believes that the side yard setback on the east side of 40 Manzanita, as well as the lattice, provide enough separation and privacy between the neighbors to address their concerns. In terms of a design review permit, in order for the Planning Commission to grant a design review permit, the following findings must be made. Number one, that the architectural, landscaping, and general appearance of the proposed building or structure and grounds are in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. Number two, that the project complies with all applicable development regulations. Number three, that the project will not cause a significant visual impact to neighboring views from principal rooms of a residence. And number four, that the proposal is not detrimental to the orderly, harmonious, and safe development of the city, and will not impair the desirability of investment or occupation in the neighborhood in which the building or structure is proposed to be erected. Staff believes that these findings can be made as detailed in the staff report. And in terms of the conditions of approval that I mentioned before the presentation that we wanted to clear up, the two special conditions that you'll find as part of Exhibit A of Attachment 1. So the first condition would have an addition that would read, the upper story side setback on the east side of the property shall be set an additional 2 feet from the location of the proposed exterior wall below for a total upper story side setback 6 feet from the location of the proposed exterior wall below. And special condition number 2 would also have a slight addition to read, the deceased 30-inch Monterey pine on the rear east side of the property, as well as the shrubs along the east side of the property line, shall be removed prior to final inspection of the home, and so on and so forth. And then we would also add a special condition number 3 that would read, excuse me, per Mulberry Municipal Code Section 10.05-210, Table 2, the maximum fence height within the required side yard outside the front yard setback is 6 feet. Additional height may be permitted for support posts, columns, or gates and/or supported decorative ornaments, not to exceed 18 inches. The applicant shall modify the plans as necessary to comply with this requirement. With those amendments and with staff's belief that the design review permits can be the Planning Commission can find the design review permits to be met. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission receive the presentation, review the project, consider the public testimony, and approve the design review permit, subject to the findings in the resolution in Attachment 1, and subject to the conditions of approval to allow a significant demolition of an existing single-story residence and the construction of a new 2-story single-family residence in the single-family residential zoning district. With that, staff is available for any questions, and I believe the applicant is present as well.
Thank you. Before we take the commissioner questions, can you just go back to Attachment 7 or the picture that was submitted by the applicant? I just thought it might be helpful for if you can.
So this slide?
Yes, no, one more. Yes, that one. If you can just show us what the difference would be with the 2 feet setback and the, just for sake of the public and for everybody else, just to be clear. What would be, if you can just show on here, what would be the impact of an additional 2-foot setback, side setback, and the trees being removed? So
sure. So the Monterey pine that I mentioned that would be removed is this tree here, as well as these bushes here as well. And I believe this story pole here shows that second story, a proposed second story. So that would move 2 feet on this side. So I can't really scale this, but
right.
But yeah.
But the hope would be to open up that view. That would be similar to what they have now.
Potentially a view would be available on this side. Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
On the other side of the story pole.
Great. Thank you very much. So with that, we'll go ahead and open to commissioner comments, commissioner questions of staff at this time. If anybody does anybody have any questions before we hear from the applicant? No, okay. Okay, thank you. So, and let's, can we bring in the applicant, please, to speak?
Yes, I will bring them in now.
Hello, welcome. You're here. You need to unmute and welcome.
Hi.
Hi, we can hear you fine, so go ahead.
Okay, great. Would it be possible if we could invite Sam? Oh, there we go.
I'm here now. Sorry,
okay.
It says my law firm name instead of my own. Hi, good to see everyone. Hi, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present. My name is Sam. I'm a land use attorney in San Francisco. Sydney and her husband are also here. I've known Sydney for a few years prior to starting this project, and I agreed to lend a hand to help her get this project over the finish line. And I know that after I'm done, Sydney would like the opportunity to address the commission and also reintroduce herself. She did speak at the prior hearing. And David Kupamaki, the architect, is also present and available to answer any questions related to the design of this project. And I'd also like to say thank you to Roscoe and Nestor. We really appreciate the planning department working with us and the neighbors with respect to the view concerns. And ultimately, although not preferred to the original design, I spoke with Sydney, and she's amenable to the proposed compromise with the planning department that the setback would be reduced by 2 feet if the planning commission would approve that. As the commissioners know, this project was before this commission on November 1st for a study session. During that hearing, we heard from the neighbor with respect to the view concerns, and the commissioners suggested that the planning department do 3 things. Number 1, retain a city-hired arborist to do an assessment to determine whether or not the prior arborist report was correct. Second, to have the planning department do a site visit to obtain neutral photographs of the view. And third, that the applicant conduct additional outreach to the neighbor. With respect to the arborist, at the planning department's direction, we did pay for an initial arborist to conduct an assessment that was selected by the city, and that confirmed the results of the initial arborist report. Additionally, with respect to the photos, after the November 1st meeting, we did reach out to planning to request that we have a construction photographer attend the site inspection with planning to obtain photos from different angles and different heights with the elevation measured to aid in our analysis of the view and to see what the project impact would be. And in lieu of that planning department could take photographs from various locations around the house and around the rumpus room and record the heights, angles, and distances, which would ultimately aid in our analysis of the project's impact. I believe that the planning staff, as Nestor said, they did do a site visit in early December, but due to poor visibility, they were unable to take photos, and I do not believe that was rescheduled. And in lieu of the site visit, my understanding that the planning staff asked the neighbors to take photographs of the view. And I say all this because we're a bit limited to those photographs in our view analysis. So everything that we're basing this off of is based off of those photographs. With respect to neighborhood outreach, after the last meeting, I did reach out to the neighbors and introduce myself and scheduled a Zoom meeting. Ultimately, that Zoom meeting was held on February 3rd. And the main purpose of reaching out was to determine if there was room for a compromise with respect to the setback that would be acceptable by the neighbors and also acceptable by the applicant, so we could reach a compromise and have them ultimately support the project. During that meeting, and my takeaway from the meeting was that the neighbors requested that we conduct additional story polling with story polls placed at several intervals before they could commit to a compromise with respect to a specific setback change. After that meeting, I met with Sydney and we discussed the proposal. That discussion was centered around those photographs, which was the extent of the extent of our information about the view. On our end, asking my client to put up additional story polls and delay this project further was a bit of a hard sell without a clear understanding of whether or not the neighbors would ultimately accept a compromise or to what that compromise would be. So rather than delay the project, inevitably expend additional resources and do additional story polling, it made more sense to follow the recommendation of the planning staff. I emailed the neighbors to inform them that we were unwilling to conduct the additional story polls as part of a compromise. In these types of situations, I find that the best approach is to be straightforward and upfront. And as long as you share your reasoning, it's not my favorite part of my job to tell people what they don't want to hear. But it's my understanding that the commissioners have a copy of that correspondence, as well as additional correspondence to the planning department from the neighbor. So ultimately, we were unable to reach a compromise, unfortunately. However, while we would prefer that the project be built as it was designed, we're not in opposition to the compromise recommended by the planning department, if that's what it takes to get this project over the finish line. Sydney's here as well, as I said before, and I know she would like the opportunity to reintroduce herself and explain a little bit more about her family and the history of this project.
Thank you. And go ahead, Cindy.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. Again, thanks for taking the time. It's my husband and I. I know that the home seems fairly large, and the reason for that is from our past meeting, I've mentioned that there is 8 people in my household, and it's a multi-generational family home. So of course, with that, we had to consider all the room that we needed just to accommodate all these growing kids. I mean, just in general, we have 5 kids coming in to Millbrae. And growing up, I've always lived in the suburban area. And so right now we reside in San Francisco. We don't have a backyard. My kids can't go run around riding a bike outside. And so, we chose Millbrae because we know it's a very children-friendly neighborhood. And so, and that was the whole purpose when we looked for a home, was to buy a lot large enough to build a home that would fit the family size that we have. And then on top of that too, our work is in Burlingame, also Foster City. So, we're moving closer towards where we work. So just a little gist of, why we're building such a large home, and why we decided to choose Millbrae to move to, just to raise more of a suburban-like living for my kids. They don't really get to go outside and play and get dirty or pick up bugs and stuff like that here in the city. But in Millbrae, it seems like there's a lot of that in the backyard. So that's kind of where I'm gearing towards, because I grew up like that. So I wanted my kids to have the opportunity to kind of grow up like that too. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. And did the architect, did you want to speak, or just here for questions, to address questions? Mr. Kopamaki? Okay, I'll assume that you're just here for questions.
Questions, yeah.
That's fine. Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Do the commissioners have any questions of the applicants?
Yes, question?
Commissioner Wong?
Yes, on the plans that were distributed by staff, it has a drawing date of 2020, October 25th, 2020, with no marked revisions. So question, was this the original drawings that were submitted to the city? And have there been any changes, revisions, updates since that time, October 25th, 2020, to address neighbor concerns?
I think that'd be a good question for David. I'm not sure, or Cindy, if you know that.
Or of the staff, whoever wants to take it. Mr. Mada. Oh, okay. Mr. Kopa?
I can answer that one.
Welcome.
So if you look at sheet L1, it will have some change. So there's only going to be 2 sheets that are going to have changes. The rest is exactly the same that you've seen. Nothing else has changed. L1, the landscape plan is going to have a demolition of the large tree in the back, along with the planting of 3 new trees. And then the story pole plan, which is sheet PLN6, also changed. Those are the only 2 sheets that changed. Everything else was exactly the same from the original submittal. Very, very minor changes.
I don't have a PLN6. Do other people have a PLN? You said that's a story pole?
Yeah, so there should be,
Okay.
commissioners, there should be PLN 1, 2, 2.1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And PLN 6 should be a story pole plan. And it shows the updated story pole.
The only PLN I have is 5. So unless
Oh,
maybe
the 3D
it's mixed
rendering.
in. Right, I
It
have
could be that-
PLN 5.
Yeah, there's in the middle of the package, there's a PLN 6. The PLN 5 is kind of redundant in
Yeah.
the back.
I'm just flipping through to catch up. So you're referring to the story pole. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
But that's-
sorry. I was going to say, after the cover sheet, the first few sheets are the PLN sheets.
Got it. I got confused because I was looking at the last sheet is PLN 5.
Because we included a color version at the end, but yeah.
Got it. Yep.
Apologies for
Just trying to
confusion.
keep up. Thank you. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Wong, or did you have?
Just a follow-up question. So the PLN 6, it was updated to include the story poles. What's the dates of that revision? Marked on the plan.
We did not date any revisions on this.
That's
So
not a
there's no-
plan
there's-
revision, though. I don't think it's
There's
just a
no
story point.
clouded or delta revisions. We just made revisions.
When was the update then?
1 second. February 10th.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions of the applicant?
I'd like clarification to Chair.
Commissioner Del Negro, go ahead.
I'd like some clarification about the plate heights in the final design. This is showing the 10-foot or the 8-foot in the final design. I'm a little unclear on attachment 8 and what I'm looking at. Can somebody walk me through that?
I'm not sure what attachment 8 is, but per the sections, which I'm just opening right now real quick. Excuse me, I was traveling all day and just got home.
Just to give a, I believe you might be looking at attachment 8 from the previously, from the previous study session.
Yes.
That
We
was
talked
included in
about
that packet.
Looking at the alternatives between an 8-foot and a 10-foot plate height. I don't see a major follow-up yet. I might just be missing it. I'd like somebody to walk me through where that is in the comparison between those two plate heights.
I believe it was found that the plate height difference wouldn't really affect the view in any significant way.
Could you direct me to some visualizations for that?
So if you want to maybe go show the staff, you're talking about attachment 8 of the previous staff report, which
Yeah.
has elevations. It shows the elevations on it. Maybe can that be called up?
Sure, just give me 1 minute real quick.
Sure, thank you. It looks like this one. This is the one, right, Commissioner?
That's all I could find is that, and it doesn't show the
Okay.
2-story with the 8 versus 10.
This one here.
Yes, this is 8-foot first and second story ceiling heights, correct?
I believe so, yes.
All right, and how does this compare to the 10-foot plate heights? All right, that's the 10-foot?
Maybe the architects can provide a clearer answer, but I believe the 10-foot would be found here.
Those are very, very different in overall height of the building and blocking of.
Two different photos. If you look at the top one, it's a photo with it lower, and the bottom photo is higher up where you can see the top of my roof. So they're two different photos.
Different angles, I think.
Different angles. They're different angle photos. So that was the first photos that were given to us to work with when we first tried to compromise with the neighbor. But that was the photos that they had sent us that we had to work with. So of course the scale will not be on point if the photos are not particularly the way it really is when it's taken. So that's why you can see it's all a little off, because they're photos that are used. that
I'm
are
not, you're saying I'm not offered a picture that really allows me to evaluate the difference between the 8-foot and 10-foot plate heights then?
I don't know, because it's two different photos. I don't know.
And that's one of the reasons why we had asked for more, to have a construction photographer take the photos. So it's hard to do the overlay without knowing the elevation of the photo, the angle, etc.
The story poles that are there, they are according to the 10-foot, using the 10-foot plate heights, is that correct?
Correct.
I guess staff would,
That's correct, yes.
okay, just to clarify that the story poles are according to that, but I guess we don't have photos that will show the same thing. Commissioner Domingo, did you want to?
And the story poles also don't go to plate height, they go to the roof above the plate, so a couple inches above plate height.
But they account for a plate height of 10 feet versus 8 feet.
They account for the plate height of 10 feet plus the small amount of truss above it.
Right, above it.
At wall edge, exterior wall.
Okay. Commissioner Domingo?
That's not the roof. The roof height is what you're saying isn't accounted for on the story poles.
Is accounted for on the story poles. So when you see the story poles, it goes up to the roof. So
it goes up to the roof at the right above the exterior wall. So go up the exterior wall. You don't count the eave overhang. Just go straight up till it hits the roof. So a couple inches above the plate in that line.
The edge of the roof, not the peak of the roof.
Not the peak of the roof. Right.
Correct. At least in that picture that was shown. Yes.
Is that okay for you, Commissioner Domingo? So far?
Yeah, for now.
Okay. Any other commissioners have questions of the applicants, or I guess even of staff if you want to double back? No. Okay. I had just one question, because the plans that we're talking about to approve are not including that additional 2-foot setback. That's correct? So that's kind of odd to me to be approving something where we're saying that it's going to be adjusted. So you can't just take out the wall, because if you look at the site plan, it's actually part of a bathroom and things like that. So are we just assuming that, I don't know, I just feel a little bit, I'm not sure how that works in terms of approving something where it will change, maybe not significantly, but that it will be changing a bit. How does that work? If you can just provide a little clarification on that, I'd appreciate that.
I think David might be able to speak to the interior design change. Are you asking about what's going to change on the inside of the house?
Right.
In the wall?
Right, because we're approving a plan. We're approving a plan with the site plan showing without the 2-foot setback, side setback. And now we're saying that one of the special conditions of approval will be to include the 2-foot side setback. I think one of the slides showed how much that would show. I think Mr. posted that up. And obviously you're not going to just cut the plan by 2 feet. You have to make some revisions. So I wanted more, I guess, some clarification from staff as to, because I don't remember doing that before. And then maybe of the architect, if it's an easy fix, if you can just show us that. But I guess first, Mr. Mata, if you can, maybe address my concern.
Yeah, so if should the planning commission decide to approve the project tonight with that condition, prior to the issuance of building permits, the applicant would make the adjustment to the plan, accounting for the additional 2 feet, and staff will verify that on at the issuance of building permits, and then that would satisfy the condition of the approval if the commission were to adopt that condition.
Understood. Okay. And then with the architect, it's not going to be a significant change to do that to the side setback?
Yes, I'm just looking at the plans right now. I didn't know about this.
Maybe Nestor, if you could put up that the site plan, second story site plan.
Sure. But just looking at the plans, what it would do, it would make the master bedroom 2 feet smaller.
Kwapamaki, if you can wait, he's going to put up the plan, the site plan.
Of course,
You
yeah.
can just look at it.
The second story floor plan.
The second story, sorry. Second story, not the site plan, second story floor plan. And then the red is where the that represents what a 2 foot
2 feet, yeah.
change would be,
So we wouldn't just cut it off like you mentioned before.
Right.
Obviously, that wouldn't work. So you would lose some width in the master bedroom, the master closet, and then the bedrooms below that would also lose some width. And then somehow we'd have to lose, it looks like a foot out of the hallway closets and then a foot out of the bathroom number 2 to make that work. Building code wise, it looks like it would work. I'm sorry, I didn't know about this until just right now. Because those closets, yeah.
specifically that second bathroom in the closet, it seems like that might have to be.
The bathroom right now is already kind of tight regarding its spacing. It looks like there's 6 inches to spare in front of the sink for code, because you're allowed to have 3 feet. And it's 3 feet 6, and those closets are 3 feet 6, so those could get a little bit smaller, where it says the closets that are open to the hallway next to the stairs. So it looks like you could squeeze it over a little bit. If we had to do 2 feet, I'm sure we could make it work. I'm sorry, again,
That's fine.
This is kind of a left field on me. I didn't know about this.
Sure, no, understood. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's all I have at this point. So one more, commissioners, no? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and open up to, we're gonna go ahead and open, let me get my notes together. Gonna go ahead and open up to public comment. Before we do that, I did want to just kind of make some, comments regarding, just to make clear that as the staff mentioned, the Planning Commission did receive a copy of all the different correspondence that have been going from the applicants and neighbors to us directly, or to staff directly, the planning department directly, as well as copies of some of the correspondence between applicants and neighbors that were forwarded to us by the applicants and neighbors. So just wanted to make sure that everyone is clear that we did receive and review those. I did want to note that, we're not here to, I know it can be a little bit emotional. Our homes are precious to all of us. So it can be a little bit emotional, but we're not here to really litigate, who said what, or, how intentions or things like that. It's really we want to examine the project on the merits of the project and the merits and the drawbacks of the project. So if we can, I'd really like to keep the discussions to that as much as possible. And again, I acknowledge this is always difficult. It's one of the most common topics is the building of second floors out there, and so we've seen that, and it can be a difficult time for people. So again, we want to decide on the merits of the project. As I mentioned for the previous topic, we have for the previous subject, we have public comment and will be limited to 3 minutes each. We'll have a time for applicants to respond, and then if there are no other if there's no new information that comes up, we'll go ahead and close out the public comment period at that point. So having said all of that, if we can go ahead, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand so that we can start letting you in one by one.
It's great. We do have one hand. Maura, if you'll come off mute.
Sure. Hi there. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Oh, great. Okay. Hi, this is Maura LeBaron Shea. I live at 25 Manzanita Court across the street from 40 Manzanita. And I just wanted to share that, as was mentioned by a few people since the last meeting, planning division staff visited our home. They were not able to get great pictures of the view because it was so overcast. But subsequently, they requested a number of photos from us. Unfortunately, with the timing, the way it worked out, when they came, it was like just before the start of the Omicron surge. And so, for safety reasons, my parents live with us. My dad's in his 80s and has some health conditions. And so for that time frame, it wasn't a good idea, we felt, to have, another visit at home. And so the city planning staff sent us a list of photos that they would like from a specified set of angles, including the whole window frame, et cetera, et cetera. So I did my best. I think there's a pretty good assortment of photos from a very standard angle available at this point. So hopefully everyone has the information that they need to make their projections and model the information that they need to show. But of course, we're always happy to provide more info if that's still needed. The other thing I wanted to mention is that since today is the first offer of kind of any compromise solution for the view impact, I did want to take advantage of the opportunity to let Cindy and Tony know that, yes, we welcome the offer of a compromise with the additional 2 feet of setback on the east side, and we would be happy with that solution and appreciate that that is an option that's being discussed today. We would support that. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you very much. And then I think we have another Taiken Shay as well.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, welcome. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Hi, this is Taiken Shay, the project applicant's neighbor that lives across the street at 25 Manzanita Court. I'm Moira's husband. I just wanted to take a minute first to thank the Millbrae planning staff for putting so much thought and effort into bringing together information and neighbor opinions about this project proposal to help the Planning Commission consider both the applicant's plans and their neighbors' concerns in making an informed decision about this project. We would also like to thank the planning commissioners for carefully considering this project proposal in a way that gives fair consideration of everyone's concerns. And we trust the commission to make an assessment that will be seen as fair to all those who have interest in how this project turns out. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other members who wish to speak?
I believe Anson, you had your hand raised.
Would you like to speak? Anson Toe?
Anson?
I think his hand is down now, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Jane Huang, I'm seeing. Can we maybe bring her in?
Okay, Jane, if you come off mute.
Hello, welcome. We can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
Great, thank you. Yes, I am the neighbor at 30 Manzanita Court. I guess that's the east side. I just wanted to clarify one thing before we leave. So I know Cindy and Tony and we had talked about a higher fence to protect the privacy between both families. And I think we had discussed 6 feet plus the additional 2 feet lattice. So I just wanted to clarify that the city is saying it should be no more than 18 inches in addition. So I just wanted some clarification on that, but otherwise I do appreciate everyone working together on this and coming up with some compromises. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll have some time to, I guess, answer that question in a bit, but let's continue on with the public comment. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? No, okay. Okay, so I guess without seeing anybody else, can we have a motion and a vote to, motion second and a vote to close public comment?
I'd like to make a motion to close public comment.
Thank you. Second?
Go ahead and second it.
Thank you. Can we have a vote to close public comment?
Commissioner Delnevro,
Yes.
Commissioner Wong,
Yes.
Commissioner Quigg,
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
Chair Joe.
Yes.
Thank you. Public comment is closed.
Thank you. So now we can go ahead into, do we have any discussions or any motions available? Who would like to start us off?
Through the chair, if we could just respond to
Oh, yes.
the
Yes, thank
neighbor
you.
at, I believe it was 30 Manzanita.
Regarding,
Just
yes, 30
very
Manzanita
quickly.
regarding the lattice, the additional to the addition to the fence. Thank you so much for that.
Sure, yeah. So the maximum allowed fence height would be 6 feet on the side yard, outside of the front yard setback. And without a fence exception, they can have a lattice up to 18 inches. If they apply for a fence exception, then it can be higher up to 2 feet.
Okay. Do they need to apply for it, or could we actually change that, or how?
I believe they would need to pay a fee for that.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So the project as proposed, with the application submitted, currently do not include a fence exception. If the commission decides to approve the project and requires or requests a additional fence height up to 2 feet over the 6 feet, that could come back to the commission on another hearing. The fee for the fence exception is only $238, but it wouldn't preclude the commission from making a decision this evening on the project. But currently, as the code stands, the maximum additional is as Mr. Guevara mentioned, 18 inches above 6 feet, which is 6 inches shorter than 8 feet.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for answering that. So any commissioners, would you like to start? No, Vice Chair Davis.
I thought this meeting might go on all night long, and we've reached a solution and everybody's happy. I'm so happy. I just, the design is still beautiful, and we've, come to agreements all the way around, and I'm very happy. I can't wait to vote.
Would you like to make a motion since nobody else?
As long as everybody else can make a comment if they
I'll
like.
still give everybody else a chance to
Okay,
comment.
then I will move to approve the project. Where is it? Let's see, that's the old one. Where's
Okay,
tonight?
Okay. You want me to I'll give you time.
There it
why don't we
is.
go- Okay, go ahead.
There it is. Now it disappeared. Yeah, move to approve the design review permit application to permit the significant demolition of existing single-story family residence and the construction of a two-story single-family residence in the single-family residential zoning district, subject to the attached conditions with the amendments highlighted in this meeting.
Through the chair, may
Yes, Mr.
before we have a
Martin,
second, did the commission want to request that the applicant bring back a fence exception for the additional height?
Since Commissioner Davis, Vice Chair Davis is making a motion, do you want to include that, or should we just, do you want to just leave that out?
If it's, will 18 inches do it?
The applicant and the neighbor had discussed 2 feet.
Okay.
That's 6 inches. In staff's
right.
opinion, 6 inches won't be significant difference, but perhaps the neighbor can provide their opinion.
Someone
We've closed the public comment already, so. Oh.
Okay.
You can
We
ask her
could,
question.
Can we,
Yeah.
okay, if okay with all the commissioners is that
Yeah.
okay with you to open
Yeah.
and reopen? So if we can have, I had your name here, our
Laura.
neighbor at 30,
No,
neighbor at 30 Manzanita.
Yes, I have her here. I
Jane.
can,
Yes,
Jane,
thank you.
yes.
Jane.
Please, Jane, go ahead.
Hello. Hi,
Hi.
thanks again. Yeah, I mean, we had just discussed 2 feet. It's always a little hard for me, honestly, looking at the drawings and like with the window studies, like knowing exactly the angle, especially now with the new setback. I haven't seen like a window study with the new setback to know the angles where they're looking into our home. But as we mentioned in the last meeting, the study session, all of our bedrooms are along that side of the house. And so for us, it's really just all of our bedrooms and our main bathrooms actually are along the side of the house. And for us, it really is more of a privacy concern since they're going to be so much higher and they have bedrooms on the second floor of their house. So for us, we would appreciate that extra height and fence as offered. So I think for us, especially not having that window study with the additional new setback, I'm not an architect, so I think for me it's a little hard to picture exactly, but I know we would appreciate that extra height in terms of privacy.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And Mr. Conran, were you going to say that we can do that somehow tonight? We could require that application be made for an exception?
I think you can, yes, you can condition it on them coming back and seeking the additional 6 inches on the fence height.
And it won't cause the staff too much terrible work to bring that back to us sometime. I mean, they said it would have to come back to us.
I don't think so.
We'd be happy to do that.
It's easy.
Okay. Then with one more change, asking the applicants to apply for a fence exception to go to 2 feet of lattice.
And staff, do we need to put a time frame on that, or it doesn't matter?
I would say prior to the final inspection, gives the applicant quite a bit of time. Typically, the fences are built towards the end anyway.
So Vice Chair Davis, does that sound good to you?
Yes,
The prior to final inspection.
Sounds fine.
Okay, great. So we do have a motion. I'd like to give the other commissioners a chance to, if you want to second, you can do that, but we'll continue the discussion before we do any vote. So if you can either do a second or just a comment, that's fine.
I'd like to second.
Commissioner Wong has second. Okay. Commissioner Del Negro, were you going to say something?
I just was going to ask a question. What's the final square footage considering the 2-foot setback addition? Just like the estimate here.
Have to 2 times the length, the width. Yeah, that, if somebody can do that. And do you have any other? We'll let staff have some time.
I just want to
Sure.
hear what the actual final number was.
Yep. Do you have any other questions though while they're working on that?
I do not. Actually, I'm very happy about this evening with compromise and the feedback from the neighbors.
Nestor, did you?
I was just going to say it might be easier for the architect if he has the plans.
Okay.
To
Mr.
get that.
Kwapamaki, can you do a quick calculation? I think it's just the depth times 2, but
It's giving us the 1 second.
minus that, yeah.
So originally, the total living space, not including the ceiling FAR stuff, was 4,535. We're going to lose 127 square feet, making it 4,408.
Wow, I put this right on par with other houses in the community. But now, obviously, 4-wise, it fits.
Thank you. Commissioner Quick, did you have anything you wanted to?
I did, but I was, and maybe that lady won't need the fence inspection because like she said right now, she was not real sure what the impact was going to be with the change of moving it back. So what we're doing is giving her the opportunity to come back, but if she doesn't come back, I think it's okay too, right?
I don't think that's the condition right now. I think the condition as moved was to have them come back prior to final inspection. Is that correct?
Right, but what I'm saying is if she chooses not to come back.
That's what I think the way it's, Mr. Conroy, maybe.
I was
I
just
think
saying,
way
it's the owner that's coming back, but I suppose if you wanted to build in, unless she waives it.
I mean, what if she's happy with,
So unless
as
she
the
waives it.
building
Right.
gets built, she might decide that there's plenty.
The neighbor might decide that it's
Yes,
fine.
yes.
Okay. Vice Chair Davis has her hand up. Maybe you can propose something.
The neighbor just reiterated that the 2 parties agreed to the 2-foot lattice. And if we can accommodate that, I'd rather just say 2 feet and call it a day and just have them come back for the exception.
It's your motion.
That was the motion. So the motion right now is no matter what, that we're going to go with the 2-foot, and that was.
Yeah,
was
we're gonna go
seconded.
with it. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Well, I'd like my comment is that I'm very happy that the neighbors across the street are happy that you're with that just the 2 foot. And I really want to, I feel like we say this every meeting, but really thank the staff for all your hard work in, 2 very, a lot of work projects, very heavy projects today and just along the way, and being able to kind of work with the neighbors and trying to find a good resolution and really thinking out, not outside the box because it's not a huge difference, but still being able to come up with a solution that actually works. And I was like Vice Chair Davis was saying, I was thinking this might be a really long meeting, but very pleasantly surprised that the neighbors are feeling good about this. And I think that's, that's always great to see. So, so with that said, does anybody have anything else to say? Otherwise, I will call for the vote since we have a motion and a second already on the floor. Okay, may we have the vote, please?
Commissioner Del Negro,
Yes.
Commissioner Wong,
Yes.
Commissioner Craig,
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
and Chair Joe.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And so just to note that there is a 10-day appeal period, but otherwise, congratulations, and I hope everything goes smoothly with the remodel, and looking forward to seeing your family able to join us in Millbrae here. So
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and close that. Item number 5, is new business. There is none right now that I see here on the agenda. Item number 6 is staff updates. So, and this is update on submitted planning applications and future planning commission meetings, just informational.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Joe and members of the Planning Commission. We have received the resubmittal for 210 Adrian, which is the other life sciences project. Staff is reviewing that right now. I believe I spoke in a previous meeting that site was sold to Longfellow, and we're processing that, and it's commissioned to see that sometime before the summer or around there. Additionally, I wanted to give an update to the commission about the Alexandria project that was approved by the commission, and there was, as you will probably remember, there was a condition that the community benefit agreement be approved by the city council. That I'm happy to announce that community benefits agreement was approved by the council on February, I believe it's the 8th. So that was approved. It was on consent calendar and not much discussion. So that's some very encouraging news. And then also just an update on that project. The applicants have submitted for building permits and demo permit. We're still reviewing those plans, and it's going through plan check, but we anticipate the permits for that being issued pretty soon. So construction will be on the way. And then additionally, the city staff, in conjunction with our consultant, Placeworks, held a community workshop on SB9, potential SB9 ordinance, which we're calling 2-unit / urban lot split. This is to implement the recently passed legislation coming on SB9. The workshop was held last week on the 17th. We promoted it on the city's social media accounts through our public information officer. We posted flyers in downtown, and then also notified the applicants who have inquired about that, and any interest list that we have prepared. We haven't gotten. We got 11 participants in the community meeting, but also we asked for a survey to be filled out, just a very brief, I believe it's a 11-question survey on items that we need feedback on. That survey is online, and it's on the city's website, www.ci.millbrae.ca.us/SB9. And that survey will be up for another week through March 4th. And so we're asking members of the public, if you're not able to, make the community meeting, please fill out that survey. Additionally, we're able to accept comments through email if you have just general comments. And comments regarding that ordinance can be sent to the city's email at planning@ci.milbrae.ca.us. After we receive, after that closes, we'll be going to the city council for a study session on the, any policy considerations, and then formulate a draft ordinance after that. So
and does that need to go before planning commission at all, or it's just going to be city council?
It's going to be just city council.
Okay.
For the policy considerations.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's still a few things that needs to be ironed out with Alexandria, and just a few conditions that need to be resolved. But you know, we're still working through that. But hopefully, within the near future, we'll be able to get permits for Alexandria. So one other thing that I wanted to discuss with the commission is we typically have large full-size sets of plans that we distribute. I think this commission finds it very helpful to look at the full-size sets. Is that something that you'd like moving forward to continue that, or would the commission want to go to half-size sets? We're happy to do either way. Just sometimes with these larger projects, it can get pretty big. So if the commission could probably provide input on that.
Can we just, this is usually just informational, but since Steph is asking for, if everybody can, do you want the large plans, or what is your?
I want full size.
Full size? Any other?
I'm okay with half
Commissioner
size.
Okay, Commissioner Wong's okay with half size. Wait,
I think it really depends on the project. If some of the projects are pretty simple, then the smaller scale would be fine. On the bigger projects, then of course you need the full size.
Commissioner Delhaver?
I agree with Commissioner Quigg.
Okay, that makes it a little difficult for staff, I think, to have not a consistency. Maybe what we can do is, if you have the PDF, and then have people let you know right away if they want the full copy. Can we do that? We don't want to make staff's job harder, because
we'll just stick with the full size sets of plans, just to be conservative. I mean, I know that some commissioners may be okay with a smaller set, but if you decide that you might want to take, like, it's easier to reference, especially if we're referencing specific sheets. It's easier to see. I know that the text can get a little small, so we'll just continue with the full size sets for now. Okay.
Actually, yeah, for myself, I'm fine with electronic documents. So as long as they're posted online, you don't have to print me a set.
Okay, it is okay.
Is that more or less difficult for you to have different? Roscoe, is it?
It's if Commissioner, are you saying?
I think Commissioner Wong just wants electronic completely.
Okay.
And
That's
then
fine.
Everybody else just wants it. If we get it, they want a full set, and
Sure.
a full size set.
We can accommodate that.
Okay.
So
I tried
four
doing
full sets.
electronic, but it's really hard to sometimes to maneuver around. So, but I know that Commissioner Fung did. I mean, council member. Well, anyway, when he was Commissioner Fung, used to do that and seemed pretty proficient at it. So I think that should be fine. Anything else in terms of staff updates?
That's all for now.
I had a question about the location of your surveys. I always find it difficult to find surveys or direct people to surveys on the Milbrae website. Can we not have a button on the front page that actually says active surveys?
We can certainly look at that. What we're going to do is we're going to highlight the survey on the page. We'll ask the administration to, if we can highlight that somewhere on the front of the city's website. And then we'll also push it out to the social media accounts once more, just to get additional input.
The buttons are pretty easy. Okay, anything else? At some point, I guess I would like to, I just would like an update on the TOD, how that's going, but I'm not going to ask you now. I'm just saying it'd be nice to have like a quick overview of how things are going. So
TOD2 project?
TOD2, yeah, TOD2.
Sure, I can have.
Not right now. You don't have to do it right now. I'm just saying at
Yeah.
some point, maybe in the future, and it doesn't have to be something that takes you a lot of time. Just a little overview of like timeline, what we're expecting, because they're up there. They're built up.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And then moving on from there, then Planning Commissioner announcements. Or any announcements? No? Okay. I have my shredding party. I mention this every year, April 30th at Mills High School. So, and electronic waste as well event. So that if you're interested, just let me know. But that's on April 30th. And we do a fundraiser for Mills, for the school. And with that, our next meeting will be March 7th.
Yes, we will have a meeting March 7th, and also we anticipate one on March 21st as well.
And we do know that we have projects coming up for those. Okay, great. Well, again, I'd like to just say thank you to the staff for all your hard work, and thank you to Mr. Connery for being here for your guidance, because a lot of things we need help with to make sure we do everything well and do our best by the city. So with that said, we'll go ahead and adjourn the Planning Commission meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you to